Welcome to Still Serving, the VFW podcast, the official podcast of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And now, from the VFW Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., here's your host, Rob Couture.
And welcome to Still Serving. I'm your host, Rob Couture. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. We're recording this on St. Patrick's Day. And if you're watching us online, you're going to see that we're all in our full regalia, if you will. I don't know if regalia is the right word.
Is that the right word?
I don't know. Joining me here in the studio is our executive director of the VFW's Washington office, Ryan Gallucci. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Rob. Top of the morning to you.
And top of the morning to you, too, lad. It's not even the morning. It's actually
not,
the afternoon.
Yeah, we're recording in the afternoon. But
you may notice that we don't have a lot of folks here. It is after the Washington Conference. Mm-hmm. People are getting ready to do different things. People are in different locations. And so we grab who is available to do this kind of conversation. But you are in your St. Patrick's Day green, which I'm proud of you, Ryan, for doing that.
Yes. You know, let's be festive. You know.
Yeah. Are you Irish at all? Irish descent?
Yes. Ryan Gallucci, like most good New Englanders, half Irish and half Italian. So
yes, the same. I'm half Irish as well. All right, so let's go over to online. Joining us online is, of course, our illustrious co-host, Brittany Diamond Murray of the Clan Murray. And then above her,
That's right,
kind of in the Hollywood squares, if you will, is John Muckelbauer, the VFW's general counsel. Hi, John.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And joining him also is from, where are you calling in from there, Jason Johns?
Madison, Wisconsin.
He's from Wisconsin, but he is the chair of our legislative committee, Jason Johns, Esquire. I guess I could put that behind both you and John's titles as Esquire.
Wait, we have our lawyers here today?
We do have the lawyers here today, and it is for good reason, because we have some topics that we need to get into.
We do. So this one, you know, we're happy to confer with our counsel this episode. But here are the topics we have to talk about. So one of the reasons that we wanted our legislative chairman, Jason Johns, to join us is to talk about a little bit more about the Washington Conference, and this from his perspective as the chairman of the VFW National Legislative Committee. There's a ton of work that happens. We had our commander-in-chief on, Carol Whitmore, to talk about her role in the conference and her hearing. But Jason has a whole other litany of responsibilities as the legislative chairman, and eager to hear about the conference from his perspective. Then, you know, one of the reasons we're excited to have our general counsel here is because the VFW, and John, please interject if I mess this up, because again, not a lawyer. We've officially filed our brief in our lawsuit against Department of Veterans Affairs on denying certain GI Bill benefits as a result of the Supreme Court Rudisill decision.
Yeah, I have questions about that.
Exactly.
Go on.
Did I get that right?
That's exactly it. That's in a nutshell. So
all right.
Good.
And then also, you know, really excited to have both John and Jason here to talk about claim sharks. We've talked about this on just about every episode lately, but there's a lot of moving parts. Jason and John have both played key roles in this, and maybe a little video that we'll either link to or show you here.
Sure.
About our battle against claim sharks. We're also going to talk a little about VA collaboration ? There's some stuff that's happening in the news that we'll talk about, specifically VA looking to deploy a fraud tool, but then some of the confusion that came along with that. Our goal is to try to set the record straight for our viewers and listeners on what to expect, but also, you know, let's talk about VA collaboration. And then, Rob, you're going to talk a little bit about our overseas visit.
I will talk a little bit about the overseas visits, and of course,
to wrap it all up, is our good of the order.
The good of the order. So, hey, let's start off with our first subject, WashCon. You know, there's a lot of photos out there from the panel. And Brittany, if you can, when we get an opportunity, put that up there, the panel, right? Even if we just end up putting it in post in the cast, that's fine. But we did not, in our last podcast, we did not have Jason with us because just unavailable, and we only had so many seats here in the studio. I mean, any more, and then you're only going to get half of us in frame. But Jason Johns was on the panel, and I have to say, what a suit, by the way, Jason. That blue suit.
It was a fantastic suit.
Yeah, and I know Brittany, she took a few photos of that. Whew, man, sharp.
I did.
As a lawyer should be. Was it a sharkskin suit?
No, it was not a sharkskin suit. But, we have some sharkskin bags we're making here as we defeat them in the state houses. So.
All right.
But it was a very fresh suit.
It was. The story behind that, yes. The airline lost my bag coming in. And so I had to go shopping for that suit Monday night before the testimony the next morning. So I got to give props to Men's Warehouse in Alexandria, my boy James out there. So.
And your boy James. It was a nice looking suit, I have to say, Ryan.
Very well for the content.
I sure did.
Before we jump in, I just want to take a second to define what the difference is between the National Legislative Committee, of which Jason is the chairman of this year, and our National Legislative Service. Because I think we mention our legislative committee on many podcasts by now. However, this is our first time, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, Rob and Ryan, this is the first time I believe we've had one of our members, let alone the chair, on from it. So the difference between our National Legislative Service and committee is that the National Legislative Service is out of the Washington, D.C. office. They're full-time staff members who do legislation all day, every day. And they oversee the National Legislative Committee, which is our grassroots piece of VFW's advocacy. And Jason, feel free to correct me on any of these points. So that's the key difference. The folks that make up our National Legislative Committee are spread out across the whole country, and they engage and they're essentially responsible for, to begin with, for starters, they come in twice a year to Washington, D.C. to help advocate for VFW's priorities. So every September and every March. And then they're training throughout the year, which is really awesome. They train in their legislative advocacy skills, VFW's priorities throughout the year. And then they also keep tabs to the extent possible and engage within their own state's veteran legislation issues. For example, claim sharks. So, and I'm sure Jason will get into that a little more, but that's the big things. And the other piece of that is our legislative committee members are not VFW staff. They're volunteers. So they're doing this on their own time, which is really phenomenal and shows a huge level of commitment to VFW's legislative goals and moving the needle forward in a really big way. So from there, I'm going to pass it over to Jason.
Yeah. So, really you kind of sum that up perfect. And thank you for recognizing that the members of the committee are volunteers, right? Many are still working full time. They're home, in their home states. And the number from each state depends on obviously the number of congressional reps their state has out in the hills. So, we've been doing a lot of good training this year. Zooms. I can't say enough about Gabby Cavini, who's came in like a hurricane this year and really, took a lot of thoughts that I had for the committee and has made them reality, and just keeping on everybody and outstanding training, getting everybody more prepared for this Washington conference than I think the committee's ever been in the past. So props to her as well.
I have to agree with that. And Jason, the committee has, first of all, it expanded this year. Because the VFW finally decided to pass a bylaw that made this an actual standing committee.
Right.
Because the work that the legislative committee does is critical to allowing the VFW staff to then reach deeper into Congress and make sure that the VFW's priorities come to the forefront. Just that week alone that we were in town for WashCon, first of all, Jason, your relationship with some of the members of the Wisconsin congressional delegation have been instrumental to helping us navigate some complex issues here in Washington. And then 2 weeks ago, when one of your senators blocked the Major Richard Starr Act, it was Wisconsin's delegation to this conference. It was you as the legislative chairman. It was our senior vice commander in chief, who's also from Wisconsin, who helped to lead that charge to tell Senator Johnson he was in the wrong.
Yeah. That's correct. Definitely disappointment there. I was pretty proud, though, like you said, the Wisconsin delegation. I mean, the folder, Senator Moran hadn't even hit the gavel on the hearing. And I was just closing my folder when Gabby and Joy came over and said, Johnson's going to object to Blumenthal's unanimous consent. And I was like, really? So we managed to.
As if you didn't have enough to do this week as legislative chairman.
Right. So, I didn't get to say, good job, Carol, to the chief. I was out and I was gathering my delegation, and we were able to get on the train over to the Capitol and get up in the gallery, and we were able to look him in the eyes as he did it. And then we went over to his office, and one by one, I had everybody file in one by one to express their disappointment. And it was, it was obviously disappointing. We couldn't believe what we heard. The fact that he stood there and said that, we can't afford it when, we've got the conflict going on in Iran. And, looking at the price for the Major Richard Star, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here. You might be going there, but, we're at
go in the weeds.
20 days. But it's just frustrating to see, to hear our senator say, we cannot afford it. And he mentioned way inflated numbers, by the way, on the floor, which I'm sure you've talked about. But we're at 20 days now since launching hostilities with Iran. And that means at $1 billion a day plus initial costs, we could have funded the Major Richard Star Act for 20 years already.
I think that's the frustrating part for us, because Jason, you and I had a couple of conversations about this too in the days afterward, and then the Pentagon did officially brief it to the Hill that yes, this was costing about $1 billion a day, and it just seemed incredibly tone deaf for a member of the Senate to get up there and say, "Oh well, we're talking about the troops, so we got to ask whether or not we can afford it." I don't know. We can afford lots of other things.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned collab. That was the first we've heard of it. He didn't even reach out to us to try and talk about it before he went to the floor and blocked it. So.
Although I really have to hand it to the Wisconsin delegation, because even then some of the visuals that were online of VFW members one by one walking into that office, and then other people. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse time to really do this. There were a lot of veterans on Capitol Hill. There were two hearings, not just the VFW and the American Legion, but then a number of other peer organizations had fly-in visits that week. Probably about 12 to 15 veteran organizations, including two of the largest, having their fly-in visits.
Oh yeah,
and it was probably a rough week for Senator Johnson, but certainly one of the reasons that we bring people to Washington.
Well, Jason, you brought up a great point. We're here and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention now that the war in Iran has continued on. We're still into this thing. We have lost 13 service members as a result of that. And the latest number that I heard this morning was up to 200 wounded. Sure. And we had said this in the last podcast a couple podcasts ago. I'm not sure. But we had said that some of these folks might actually have to medically retire.
Yes.
And this bill addresses it would address the short changing, if you will, of their benefits and retirement. And it's so tangible. It's like right now. And then for you to say, Senator, come down and say, we can't say we love the veterans without talking about dollars and cents. Wow. The audacity.
And think about what that does to morale.
Oh, absolutely.
We talk about honor the contract, right? And here you are in the midst of a combat zone, and news travels quick. Don't make no mistake. Everybody's hearing it, and to hear that what you thought you were promised, and here you are in the midst of conflict, and you're being told, well, you know what, we can't afford you. Talk about morale boosting or
awful.
Destroying, I should say.
And notwithstanding the current conflict, Jason and I were talking just earlier today, and he knows he's got a friend who served 19 years, 8 months, was medically retired. Yep. And this is exactly the type of bill that would affect him. I mean, this is incredible that he's not eligible for concurrent receipt of both his full VA disability compensation and military retirement. It's unconscionable that it's allowed to continue, at any time, but particularly now.
And there's also something else here. I believe, was it Senator Blumenthal who asked Carol during the testimony if it essentially boils down to a recruiting and retention issue, big time recruiting, because as Jason mentioned, this news travels fast. It's 2026. People know right away when something big happens in the military and veteran space. And so I saw a headline this morning, at least 200 people have been injured so far. And some of them agreed will most assuredly need to be medically retired. So think about, and you don't find out about it until the very last minute. By the way, you're not getting that, what you're due. You're not getting what you're owed. And so can you imagine the impact on their fellow service members and their units that are still downrange if they find out that, oh, so-and-so was injured and they're being medically retired and they're being denied their retirement benefits? What message that sends?
Yeah.
It's pretty terrible.
It is pretty terrible. It's a national security issue too, right? When you talk about recruitment and retention. And personally, I played the commander-in-chief's testimony for my family. And I have twin 17-year-old girls, and one of them is interested in joining the military next year after high school. She's like, Dad, you're out there fighting for benefits that they're owed and they're not getting. Why should I join? Right? It's affecting her, right? Much less those who are currently in uniform, right?
Right.
So, and that's one of the reasons why, the theme to Carol's testimony really was honor the contract. The chief and I were in Poland, and she heard it directly from soldiers there. Are they really talking about scaling back veterans benefits? And we've talked about it on this podcast too. Like that's these pins aren't just a catchy slogan. This is why we're here. This is why we have a legislative committee and why we have advocates in every state and even overseas to make sure that veterans get what they need. Jason, when we were prepping for the hearing, now there's a ton of work that goes into this, and behind the scenes, the legislative team reaches out to congressional offices, wants to compile, hey, what are some topics you want to talk about? What are some questions that the chief and the panel can speak to? And Jason, for both you and for John, there's been an issue related to toxic exposure and maintaining that trust that the VFW has been working on for a few years. So, we got the PACT Act across the goal line. A key part of that was the Lejeune Justice Act for service members, family members who were exposed to toxic water down in Camp Lejeune. And we were looking. We thought that Senator Blumenthal might want to go down that path and talk about some of the legislation currently pending. But then also Marine Corps veteran and VFW member Dan Sullivan usually asks that question. And so we were hoping you would be asked that question. It didn't come up in the hearing. So I'm going to ask that question.
Okay. Good.
So Jason, why is it important that we find some kind of resolution for veterans and family members who are entitled to file claims through the Lejeune Justice Act? What's the problem we're dealing with?
Right. So the problem we're dealing with, Ryan, is Congress admitted what happened there, right? They admitted back in 2022. And as you mentioned, through the Lejeune Justice Act, they admitted liability. They said, let's get these Marines, their family members, other sailors that are Navy that serve there. Let's get them compensated, right? Both for those that have passed, but those that are struggling now with current illnesses, conditions. And here we are 3.5 years later, and the bellwether trials haven't even started. Nothing's happened at the court. There's been a lot of back and forth. DOJ has taken a very defensive posture. They're interpreting the Lejeune Justice Act the way they want to, and they're causing a lot of motions at the court to, then the court has to, of course, go through these motions and figure out what's going on. So it's been a stall. And unfortunately, more and more of these victims are passing away, and they continue to struggle. And so, the VFW supports H.R. 4145, introduced by Representative Murphy and Representative Ross, bipartisan, 82 co-sponsors now, bipartisan support, and it's stuck in judiciary. And what this bill would do is clarify congressional's intent and say, look, they're entitled to jury trials. We want to make sure that they have burden of proof of general causation. I want to get in the weeds there, but it makes it easier for them to proceed with their claim and get these done quicker. It puts in a fee cap, which is what Senator Sullivan always asks about.
Yeah, that's why we thought.
Right, and that was going to be, if he asked that fee cap question, it was going to be, well, Senator, there is a bill we would love you to support, and that's HR 4145, right? Because this is going to get things moving. It'll also expand the courts. So right now, all 408,000 cases are going to end up in the Eastern District for North Carolina. Right. And they need to expand that to more courts. To be added 3 more in North Carolina, 1 in South Carolina. And to bring it full circle, look, again, we're 3.5 years in. Congress said, let's get them taken care of. Of the 408,000, only 2,500 have received any sort of compensation. And that's not acceptable.
And time's a factor here, too. I mean, we talk about toxic exposure a lot. We talk about things that the PACT Act, the framework it was supposed to set up, and other unaddressed toxic exposures. But there's a time factor to the Camp Lejeune Justice Act, right?
Right. I mean, we're talking about a time period of 1954 to 87, right? These records aren't getting found any quicker, right? These folks that are looking back at memories and having to do depositions and et cetera, it's hard. And that's where the Restoring Justice for Camp Lejeune Victims Act would help do that, is say, look, general causation, we admitted the water was bad, and the records, they need to be collected. They need to be found right now, because as time goes on, right, we're already dealing, the newest record is going to be almost 40 years old. So the more time that goes on, the harder it is for these veterans and their families to get compensation.
Wow.
So why is this so held up? I mean, you said it in the beginning that the PACT Act basically admitted that there was a problem with the water at Camp Lejeune. I mean, 3.5 years later, 200 some families have any kind of closure.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's not a political statement. It's a fact. The Department of Justice, both under AG Garland under President Biden and now under AG Bondi under President Trump, for some reason, again, instead of helping to expedite and verify, right, that the basic elements of you were there for 30 days or more between 54 and 87, and you have a current diagnosis, right? This should be almost like a presumptive VA process.
Yeah.
Instead, they're making them jump through all the hoops. Like I mentioned with the motions, they want specific causation versus general. And by that, I mean, instead of showing what Congress said, you were there, you're sick, you were there for 30 days or more. Instead, they're asking the court to require that they show specific, and that is, I was there, but I was also in the particular location where this particular well that has this particular chemical.
Oh, come on.
May have caused my particular illness. Yes. Yes. I know. In fact, it's almost like DOJ has interpreted CLJA as an elevated burden of proof versus Congress's intent.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's why the bill is so important, to clarify and underscore the streamlined effect of the law and the CLJA in general, and putting the caps on it, I think, will be helpful. We've got to expedite this process here. This is just, it's outrageous that it's been allowed to linger for so long with just a trickle of cases being resolved, through the process that exists now. It's going to take decades at this rate to start to scratch the surface here.
Decades. That's awful.
Now, let me ask this, Jason, just to shift gears a little bit. With the legislative conference, so you're serving as the chairman. You've done legislative advocacy before, right? But as the chairman, you're on the dais. Your peers on the legislative community look to you for information, guidance. You work hand in hand with our associate director of grassroots advocacy, Gabby, who you mentioned before. What surprised you about this conference from your perspective as chairman?
Yeah, the energy there was palpable. Not just in that room during the commander-in-chief's testimony, but throughout the week, from day one, in the morning with the training and the briefings. People, the members of the committee, the attendees, right? One of the things we asked the members as we trained them this year, monthly Zoom trainings, was to make sure that, because we bring out, it's not just the committee members that come out in the spring for WashCon, right? We're bringing out leadership from the department, other members who might be interested in attending. Wisconsin, we had 20 folks there from Wisconsin. And so we had them ready to hit the ground running, and they were fired up, right? And in the midst of all the priorities we have going on, that really jumped out to me this year, that both NLS and VS, right, the staff in DC, like you guys yourself, headquarters, it was just all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. And to say, look, we're not only asking you to honor the contract, right? We are advocacy in action, and we're fired up, and I loved it. Mm-hmm.
Well said, Jason.
Thanks.
Well, that is probably the most that we've talked about any kind of legalese on the show, but it's really important because I remember, Jason, we talked about the Camp Lejeune Justice Act years ago on this podcast, and this was in a different format even. But it's good to know that you guys are still there and still helping out veterans with these things. But if they want more information, Jason, do you think that there's a number or a website that they can go to find out where they can get understand what it's all about? If they apply, can they apply, and who can help them?
So basically, those that have applied already, obviously, I want to encourage you to speak with follow up, stay on your representation, whoever you may have hired attorney-wise. But I'll tell you what, right now, a great resource is us, the VFW, right? We are very apprised of this issue, and I encourage you to reach out to myself or John. We'd be happy to help with that.
All right. Well, John, Jason Johns, and John, you guys, thank you for at least filling us in on the latest on that. It's really important. But I think it's important for us to go to another lawsuit at this particular time. And that is the GI Bill lawsuit, post 9/11 GI Bill. I'm going to go to John Muckelbauer so he can break it down for our audience, how this all started and where we are now. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Rob. Speaking of honor the contract, right? There's
Nice.
not a greater benefit, I think, that has a larger impact on the American economy than what the GI Bill does.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is, the case that we presented, it challenges how the VA is implementing the GI Bill, and in particular, the Supreme Court's decision in a case called Rudisill versus McDonough. In that case, the Supreme Court held that veterans who qualified for both the Montgomery GI Bill and the post 9/11 GI Bill can receive up to 48 months of education benefits. And we're arguing that the VA's actions post Rudisill, through their directives, they still restrict benefits, effectively, I guess, recreating limitations that the Supreme Court absolutely rejected. So we cobbled together a group, including the Commonwealth of Virginia, VFW, IAVA, and of course several named individuals to bring this matter before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit.
Okay, so we have that lawsuit in. And I'm going to just come in as someone who doesn't really know much about this. Let me kind of go back to when I was retiring from the Army back in 2021. So I had paid in, like a lot of folks did, paid into the GI Bill.
The Montgomery GI
Bill. I paid into that, and
to be all you can be.
That's right. I was a be all you can be kind of guy. I was not an army of one. So that was before 9/11, and I paid into it. It was like $2,000. I think we paid into it, right?
Something like
and so, but when I when I enlisted into the Army, I also signed up for the Army College Fund, right? And that was $35 $1,000. So I was like, oh, great, I can use this later on and maybe. So that all got really confusing when I started looking at, okay, I'm going to retire. Maybe I can tap into this. And mind you that the GI Bill had shifted to the post 9/11 GI Bill and then the forever GI Bill. But what I did was, I'm like, my kids are starting to get to the age of graduating high school and going to college. So I'm going to sign whatever I have for the GI Bill over to them. And I still have that Army college fund that's kicking around somewhere. Not true. So as I was retiring and asking, they're like, yeah, no, there was a top off and tuition assistance while you were in. If you didn't take that, and that was just a booster, there was a bump. So there's a lot of that, magic dust jargon that was blown my way. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I don't get anything. But I don't know if any of this applies to me. I just know this. The reason why I say this is because I am sure that I am not the only veteran that came into this thinking one thing and then turns out in the end that I don't get anything. I'm not entitled to anything, or not necessarily true.
So, and John, please help correct us here when we totally flub this. But because I think looking at this Rudisill case, what they're talking about is so take Army College Fund out.
Yeah, take it out. I'm just saying that as
because
I want to confuse the audience all the more.
This is from DOD and the GI Bill is from VA and different pots of money. But when you paid into your Montgomery GI Bill, you were entitled to that benefit after you completed your
initial contract.
Your initial contract.
Yep.
And you retired.
I did.
So you have several reenlistments, several terms of several different. What's the word, John?
Well, I mean, what you're looking for, what the VA was looking for was a DD-214 for each period of service.
Right.
Thank you. Right. Periods of service.
Yeah. And I think that you boil it down to a question that we asked in the brief is, do veterans who serve longer get fewer benefits?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because in your case, Rob, where you earned the Montgomery GI Bill, but then through your qualifying post 9/11 service, you then earned the post 9/11 GI Bill, forever GI Bill.
Sure.
You have entitlement to those two programs. And basically the Rudisill decision said you have the ability to use then both of those programs up to a certain number of months. There is a maximum number of months. But so that you could transfer some post 9/11 to your children, but also then use some of the Montgomery GI Bill that you paid into. Now, again, I think where VA got the rule wrong is that they basically said, instead of, Rob, we're going to penalize you for staying your entire career and retiring.
Wow.
Whereas someone who did an enlistment, got out, went and did something else for a period of time, then came back in.
Sure.
Their rule says, oh, well, that person gets the Montgomery GI Bill and the post 9/11 GI Bill. But Rob, since you stayed in the whole time, thank you for your service. Here's a cold steel handshake, and it doesn't qualify for you.
No, you should be happy that you got to serve that amount of time. And I am. I've 24 years in the Army. Appreciate that. Yeah. But, the Montgomery GI Bill, I always thought that turned into, and then and that was it. I didn't get any more benefits because I signed it all over to my kids. True? Not true? What say you, John and John?
John and John.
It's almost as if the process is intentionally convoluted.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
And that's the whole point of us having to bring this action. It shouldn't be this difficult. It should not be this confusing for veterans. Certainly for us to even understand what is going on a day-to-day basis with the VA's constant sort of adjustment to how they're implementing the rules through policy guidance. So what we're saying is, look, the Supreme Court of the United States has spoken. You can't change that through internal guidance, internal policy directives, which have the full force and effect of law because they're being implemented by the VA, for those claims that are being processed. It's very clear, if you qualify for both periods of service, for the Montgomery GI Bill and the post 9/11, it's 48 months.
So it sounds like I'm wondering, so when this decision came out, like everyone else, I was wondering, do I fall under this? Like, I feel like maybe I'm might be one of the more common cases where I came in post 9/11 and I paid into the Montgomery. I did my 12 payments. I think, what was it, $1,200? Yeah. Maybe it was $2,000. I don't remember.
It was $1,200, not $2,000.
$1,200. All right, so $1,200 a month. During a really highly paid E2 and E3 time. It was great to lose that extra $100, but I knew that there was going to be a payout at the end, so it was worth it. Mm-hmm. And then I came upon I finished my 36 months of service, and I qualified for 100% post 9/11 GI Bill, and I ultimately was med boarded out. Countless other people, that happens to them, or the contract just ends and they decide not to continue service. So that has left me wondering, where does that put me? Because it says that we were told, it's like, oh no, you don't get that anymore, but we'll give you your $1,200 back when you exhaust your post 9/11 GI Bill. But you have to ask for it. We're not just going to give it to you. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that has left me kind of wondering, well, what does this mean for somebody like me who did not have a break in service? It was continuous service. So does that mean that people who have breaks in service are then rewarded, while others who do continuous service, that like continuous honorable service, are disadvantaged?
Essentially, that's how the VA started to implement it post Rudisill. Yes.
Wow.
That makes no sense.
It's baffling, and
it is.
And it only, I think, works in VA math. But yeah, if you serve longer and you have no breaks in service, you get fewer benefits than if you serve less years with breaks in service.
And that's the whole impetus of Rudisill is the Supreme Court said, no, VA, you're wrong. Because you're right, Brittany, they were telling people that you had to elect to relinquish one or the other, right? Well, the post 9/11 is much more, how about that for some attorneys?
Right.
It's definitely more generous than the GI Bill, the Montgomery. Right. And so a lot of folks said, all right, I'll relinquish my MGIB and take the 9/11. That was what the VA was doing on its own for years. Rudisill said no. They're entitled to both for up to 48 months combined, right? But then the VA, again, went off on its own and said, well, we're going to interpret that as you had to have a break in service, which means you re-enlisted, right? You have a separate 214, right? 2 periods of service. Well, guess what? That also then, if you're a commissioned officer, you have 1 period of service until you retire or
Great
you get
point.
out, right? And so a lot of them have been affected by this. And again, that's the reason John was looking at, all right, we need to get in on this, right? And then throw in this fact now, someone like yourself who relinquished it back then. What happens now, right? You gave up that MGIB, and now you're being told, the VA has been back and forth, haven't they, John? They've been back and forth now recently and saying, well, yes, we were wrong to make you relinquish it and elect to choose one. You used the 9/11, you're 36 months. You may be eligible for 12 more MGIB, or we might refund you. Fine. If they're going to try and retroactively take care of people now, that's fine. What about the person who, for that additional 12 months, already took out a student loan 15 years ago because they were told to use GIB? Right.
Right.
Yeah. And here's what, and I guess just to tout ourselves, I mean, why this action is so important. Outside of it, you'd have the individual veterans fighting each case, and taking each case up to the federal circuit. And that has been happening. And most recently it did with one of the named plaintiffs, Perkins. She filed and fought the VA, and, VA fought tooth and nail right up until just after the, briefs were submitted, VA awarded her benefits. So they know.
No. We took care of it. It's totally fine.
Exactly. So they're essentially resolving the individual complaints one at a time as they're coming in. not holistically addressing it. And that's the importance of this action that we're taking. We're doing this on behalf of all veterans affected here. The VA needs to get its,
act
ducks
together
in line and
it's a very nice way of putting
for
it.
everybody, so they don't, have to exhaust the legal process just to get at the end of the day a resolution on their particular claim.
Well, I hate to speculate. Maybe I shouldn't, but it seems like it's cheaper to do it onesie twosie instead of just address the whole thing all at once. So it could be a cost savings measure. It could be a capacity measure. It could be anything. But I really hope that by our involvement and insistence that a resolution is achieved, that it makes a difference. Because there are so many people out there. That's it. While we would love to think that our entire all-volunteer force joins the military out of pure altruism, we know that's not the case.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it because they come from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. They can't afford college. That's a really big draw to service, is the ability to go to college. And when that benefit is somehow circumvented, diminished. Rob, you mentioned the Army College Fund. Sure. I've heard so many stories of people joining the military for some sort of educational benefit, whether it's
student loan repayment.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, anything. And for some reason not happening. It's just there's no follow through or something. Yeah. There's a snag that happens and they are still left with the bill, if you will. Right. Or they're, the DOD or VA don't come through in some way. And I just really hope that there's a resolution.
I think that's when we talk about honor the contract, I think that's part of why this rallying cry has been so effective for the VFW, because you think of the other clauses that we were all subject to. Right. Are we, I don't think I have to report to that hazardous duty or that war. Is it? No. The clauses that we have to adhere to in the enlistment contract are unambiguous and enforceable. But the one about the pay and benefits that we're entitled to, it's like, you sort of get it if we want to,
but you have to ask. No, why do you have to ask?
You forgot to cross the T and dot the I. It's like, okay, so it's unequivocal that I'm saying you can order me to die, but when I say, hey, I got really injured and now you're making me retire, I can't get full benefits, but that retiring 4-star general will get concurrent receipt. Good enough for thee, good enough for me, but not for thee.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the GI Bill. Rob, we're going to penalize you for your full career of service to the Army. And we've talked about this in several facets. We talked about it even on the Lejeune Justice Act side that, we know that military duty is dangerous, but you want us to do something about it?
Right. And even if so I have plenty of friends that took advantage of tuition assistance while they were in, ended up getting their degrees, getting master degrees even, like while they were at the Sergeant's Major Academy. And they still have that post 9/11 GI Bill left over. Mm-hmm. Some of them went ahead and used that to get their PhD when they got out. So it doesn't really matter of what you used while you're in. It's what are you still entitled to? And for the government to kind of confuse you and blow the magic dust when you're a young person coming into the military. I'll tell you, I did a year of college, failed out. I've said that many times before. And I was a few years from college. My loans had gone into default. And so when I joined the Army, I was like, they have this student loan repayment up to, I think it was up to $65,000 at that time. And they said, your loans are in default. So you don't qualify for it. We'll only pay it back if your loans aren't in default. But you can sign up for the Army College Fund and you get the Montgomery GI Bill. So I was like, all right, that sounds a great deal. I'll do that. I just want to get out of it. I guess I'll just buckle down while I'm in and pay off this, however much it was, 10, 20 grand, something like that. And which I did.
By the boot blousers.
There was a lot. There was a lot of self haircutting and a lot of ironing on my own. And polishing my own boots. That's kind of the way it went. But I tell you, to get to that point, I'm very happy that I was able to transfer some of my college benefits over to my kids so they can have a shot at school. But like, was there anything left for me? I don't know. I mean, I think about this, right? You know, David Goggins, it's just announced that David Goggins rejoined the military. Navy SEAL, right? Book tours, all this sort of thing. He's now at the pararescue school in the Air Force. At the age of 51, he just rejoined the military.
Nice.
So, I
Friend
mean,
of the show, I think, right?
What was that?
Friend of the show, David Goggins.
Yeah. You know, we gave him a medal a while ago. The VFW.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's pretty. But that's hilarious that you know, you still have people coming in, and I don't know if he's used his college benefits. But anyway, filing this on behalf of veterans all around, especially those that didn't really take the time to really understand it, did their first 4 years in the military, or they did 24 years in the military like me, and really didn't take that much time to get into the nitnoids. That's why we appreciate you, John Muckelbauer, and Jason Johns for kind of explaining this to everybody, and then standing up on our behalf. I think that's great.
Well, absolutely. And let me just add one thing to that. I mean, it was important that we take this case. And when I started to really digest the substance of it a little bit, I realized that, this was not something I could do alone. So I effectively had to double the legal staff of the organization. And I brought on Jason as a legal consultant for the organization to assist with it. And he's been instrumental in doing it. So, yeah, we're now definitely we have all bases covered now with the two of them.
Well, that's great.
John. I love doing it with you, man. That's funny. Double the staff. That was good.
Yeah.
Double the staff, double the pleasure, double the fun. But I tell you, we talk about honor the contract. We talk about learning about your benefits and paying attention to what's going on. And there are companies out there that are just waiting for those young service members that are getting out, or older service members that are getting out, that don't know their right from their left when it comes to their benefits. And we like to call those people claim sharks. Those predatory companies out there that take advantage of service members, veterans, when it comes to filing their claims. So that was subject number 3 on the list, Ryan. So where are we with claim sharks?
Wow. This so we've talked about this on just about every episode lately, because there's been a lot of just stuff happening. So we've talked about some of the lawsuits. We've talked about the unconstitutional, the decision by the Middle District of Louisiana deeming the state's Please Let Us Steal Act as unconstitutional. And thanks, John, for that acronym, Please Let Us Steal. very, very helpful. But nevertheless, these companies are still out there saturating the marketplace, flying around the country, trying to confuse state legislatures, trying to say, oh, we don't want to compromise. Oh, we're trying to compromise.
Yeah.
And they're meeting some stiff competition. They're meeting some stiff opposition from the VFW and from some of our other allies on the local front. But also, the VFW has been unwavering in our position on this. And we talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, that it even came up during the hearing. So it came, it wasn't in the Commander-in-Chief's prepared remarks. Carol didn't talk about claim sharks explicitly in her 10 minutes. It was obviously in our written presentation.
Sure.
But it came up several times in the question and answer session. And there have been a lot of moving parts. Some things have come to light that are very unflattering for the claim shark industry. There are some things that VA is looking at that I think are going to make people think twice about working with an unaccredited, unregulated cottage industry. And really, this fight has been a whole of organization effort. It's been our national commanders, our legislative department, our veteran service department, our accredited service officers around the world, our legislative committee, our state commanders, and John and Jason have helped to play a critical role in that, really from the jump.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm excited that you're both here to talk about this subject and talk a little bit about it from your perspective, and share some of the lines of effort that you've gone down in fighting claim sharks. I've heard a lot from me. I've heard a lot from Christina and Mike about this fight, and I'm just eager to hear it from you about where we are.
Oh, excellent. Well, yeah, every day is Veterans Day at the VFW, and now every week is Shark Week. So
Shark Week.
You said that you've been there from the jump, right, John? You've been there from the jump, and now you've jumped the shark. I kind of think, oh man, they're all coming with these videos.
See what you did there. That's actually,
yeah.
But I mean, you've, I think, captured essentially what these companies are doing, and it has been a fight. I mean, we have really, from the beginning, there's been some times where we thought, we're losing this battle, but we continue to press on. And I will say that, we're really starting to make some tremendous progress. But I think that what these companies are doing is they're redirecting their resources, obviously, to the state level. And they are working with state legislatures to legitimize their business model, despite the prohibitions in federal law. And it's essentially trying to greenlight them where they can operate in states. And we have been, I think, pretty effective at stopping some of those. And I think no greater evidence than the decision that came out of Louisiana that you mentioned. That was just a huge case, which essentially said it is unconstitutional. This is an area that Congress specifically designated for the VA to take care of. States, you simply don't have a part in this at all. And it is a violation of the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution for you to authorize it in any way. Despite that, you're still trying to work around it in Louisiana.
Yeah.
But I think hopefully that will be put to rest. And we are, and I understand how things are at the state level too. The state legislators, they're busy. They all have, often other jobs, and they see a bill that's, titled something like, preserving lawful utilization of services. Well, that sounds great. Why wouldn't I vote for that? They look, or
we're helping veterans.
Safeguarding American Veteran Entitlement. They change the names regularly, the SAVE Act. That's why we come up with the acronyms. Please let us steal or sanction abuse of veterans' earnings. Yeah. It is illegal. And it is in conflict with the federal law. So we will just continue to press that message, and we're doing it. And we're going to be, if we have to litigate it at the state level, statute by statute, that's the process we're going to take. So we're just going to continue to fight this at every opportunity to say this is just a matter of adhering to the federal law. It's not paternalism. It's not that veterans can't decide what to do. It is the law. It is the contract that has to be honored here. It's what Congress has determined is the right way to approach this. And we're not going to, say that another way is appropriate here. States can't do it. So we're just going to continue to fight it.
I tell you, it has been rather encouraging to see the VA take more of a lead as of late and going after some of these claim shark companies that are out there and people that are, basically using some of these companies and to, fraudulently put in claims on behalf of veterans. Because it's layered, right? It's not just one particular company. It's like offshoot companies and these other medical companies that they are a subsidiary of the main company. We looked at that; it was kind of crazy. Remember?
Oh yeah, I mean there are some of the bigger companies have subsidiaries and shell companies and incorporated in multiple states, and it's just really trying to blur the lines of what they're doing. I mean some of that's what got one company in trouble in Texas was that they weren't forthright about the association of their medical providers with the company itself, and that's where the Texas Attorney General secured a $6.8 million settlement for the victims of that scheme. Yeah. And these schemes are really all alike. One of the things that I find most jarring is that they're going around shopping to these states that, like, well, I know the federal government says we can't prepare, present, prosecute claims or act as an agent or attorney, but we're not acting as an agent or attorney. So believe me, like, you're both attorneys. How does that argument even carry any weight?
Yeah, they like the claim. They're telling these state legislators that, right, we're just consultants. We're not preparing, presenting, prosecuting. We're just helping the veteran collect their paperwork and then they file it. Well,
like
that's
preparing.
Right, exactly. So they've taken this whole interpretation. Right. And as John mentioned, now in Louisiana, based on the court decision, they're literally trying today. There was a hearing, and our VFW Department of Louisiana was there to obviously testify against it. The author of the original legislation that was struck down by the court is trying to now say, well, that doesn't apply to accredited individuals. It only applies to unaccredited individuals in the state of Louisiana, so we can proceed. And they're basically trying to say we're going to carve out our own VA accreditation process and claims representation process, but just for the state of Louisiana.
Absolutely. It's like me saying, I'm not your lawyer. I'm just giving you legal advice for money. Right. It's the same thing with a different label.
Yep.
Or medical advice, like It's not legal advice. Yeah. You can't just say that and make it true.
I'm not a doctor, but I did play one on TV. That's for sure.
Yep. I mean, and so Jason, I also know that, when Brittany was talking before about helping coordinate on some of the state levels, you've really stepped up too in helping some of the states navigate this complex and ever-changing farce, I'll say it, that they keep putting forward. And so, they do adapt. They try to adapt their language. They adapted it in Maryland. They adapted it in Michigan, and really try to play into we really just want to help out veterans. But, we've talked about it's illegal at the federal level. What's the danger for a veteran, though, in working with one of these companies?
Great question, Ryan.
It is a great question.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, I don't want to.
No, go ahead, John.
Jason, but look, there is a reason why we have service officers out there providing this work at no cost. It's not just to get their claim across the finish line at VA. They're there to provide this continuity of care that's needed throughout the entire process, right? It's not just a VA benefit claim. It's to talk them through how to now maybe look at using some Chapter 31 benefits that are now available, or other benefits that stem from your rating decision, to look at using how to best use the GI Bill, to look at, importantly, to link them up with VA healthcare once they receive their rating decision. This is all of the benefits that sort of stem from working through your claim at VA. And they can sit there and advise these individuals on a one-to-one basis on all the aspects of that, not the least of which to say that at the end of the process working with these consulting companies, that they're looking at paying a bill of probably 5 times their retro amount that goes directly to these companies.
Well, 5 times their future amount.
Future amounts, yeah. And which is a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's putting veterans in debt.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that too, Ryan, you mentioned danger, right? I echo what John has said about the all-encompassing assistance for a veteran, right, by working with a service officer. On that appeal, if they're working with an accredited agent or attorney like myself, we take accountability for their case, right? We are an accredited rep. We have to file our fee with the OGC, our fee agreement. We have to uphold the standards. We have to continue with education, right, and veterans benefits law. But ultimately, as I mentioned in my testimony, we are responsible for that veteran's case. And if there happens to be a misfiling, if there is an accusation by the VA of any sort of fraud or DBQ, we have to justify that, right? We are the attorney of record. We are the agent of record, right? And as you loved, there is no shark of record, right? We talked about.
Oh, thank you.
So when the VA is finding these discrepancies and they're finding these fraud, whether it's the nexus letter, the DBQ questionnaire, they can't go to a shark because they don't exist, right? They weren't on the record. And so guess where they're going? They're going to the veteran, like you mentioned in Puerto Rico, right? So that's where the danger too ultimately lies, is you've got a veteran who, let's face it, most likely doesn't understand this complex process, because most state legislators and members of Congress don't understand this complex process. And so now we're putting this risk and this onerous on the veteran for what these sharks may or may not do that's legitimate and most likely illegitimate.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Jason, because we get a lot of feedback on our, say, social media content, for example, and we've been putting out content for years on claim sharks, and recently we've been putting out some really, really well done, in my opinion, videos, which try to get to the heart of why it's dangerous to work with claim sharks. And it seems like we're going to have to continue. It's like a public education campaign. Be like, look, if you choose to work with one of these companies, there are very real potential consequences for you as an individual veteran. And you may be applying for these benefits because you genuinely need them for your family's welfare. Right. And not only are you paying, as John mentioned, maybe, your
tens of thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands of dollars. That's a lot of money. That's many mortgage payments. That's many car payments alone. But if there is found to be fraud, Jason, as you were illustrating, there are very real consequences for that individual veteran that they don't realize that they're assuming that risk when they sign a contract with these companies. And that is a risk that is not disclosed, guaranteed.
Right.
And that's a really scary thing for veterans who are literally just trying to take care of themselves and their families' well-being and livelihoods.
And these companies don't care, right? They want
of course
the profit.
not.
They want the profit. And if the VA goes after the veteran, they don't exist. Right.
Just like you said, no shark of record. First of all, so in the hearing, a little bit of background for those watching and listening. When the Q&A came up, Jason got a question about claim sharks, and that was really, it was off the cuff, talking about the VSO of record, the agent of record, the attorney of record, and coined that. There's no shark of record. I'm sitting there frantically writing shark of record. That was good. that was clever.
I leaned over after the question. I was like, boy, we didn't prep for that. That just kind of came out.
And that's why we do that. That's what makes this sometimes so exciting. But in talking about the larger claim shark issue, claim shock. There we go. There's the New England accent.
The claim shack.
Ryan,
claim shacks.
Yeah, it just comes out thick.
Yeah. So in the risk that comes to veterans, I mean, there's been one federal indictment so far, and most of the people indicted were the veterans who took advantage of the service. Mm-hmm. And the VFW, we've kind of warned about this. Jason, you joined us for a press conference here outside of our Washington office just a couple of years ago, where we held up fraud alerts from VA's Office of the Inspector General, telling veterans not to work with companies that did these types of things because of the propensity for fraud. And I think, look, I testified on this in 2022. John, you worked with our magazine back in 2021 to put out kind of the first warnings of what is a claim shark. And it was always, fraud was always a facet of it. I was just at home last night, doom scrolling on my phone with the Bruins game on, and like for some reason there are now more Claim Shark ads, and they all allude to the same thing. Are you at 100%? Call us today. We have 100% win rate. We'll write it in a way that VA automatically grants. And there's all kinds of these companies. I was sitting here reading this, I'm like, buyer beware.
Right.
We'll guarantee you a 10% increase or your money back.
Yeah.
No charge unless you win. And look, Brittany, to your point, that's enticing for a veteran who's facing a financial hardship, who may have lost their health insurance for their family and is looking to like, okay, how can I get to Champ VA eligibility? Right. So, and really preying on very real needs.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, talk about the housing market. People, I was listening to something last week, and there's the economy, the housing market, we're like some crazy wild number short of housing for people. So what is that? What happens? That drives up prices, right? So, I mean, people need to live somewhere, and it's really super expensive, even for a 1-bedroom apartment, or if you can find one that's like reasonably priced. And so if people, it's not like a lot of veterans don't get their benefits because they don't pursue them because they don't want to take benefits from somebody else. And that's a perceived misnomer. If I ask for my benefits, I'm taking them from somebody else who deserves them more. And everyone on this podcast right now can talk about why that's not true. Yeah. But there are veterans who are reluctant to do so. But sometimes there are moments in their lives where they're like, look, something has to change. I can't pay my bills. Maybe my service-connected injury is worsening. And, you know, something's got to give. And so maybe they'll go after their benefits. And if they're having trouble, it's for them, especially if they're guaranteeing some sort of return, which a VFW service officer, any accredited service officer for that matter, would never do, because we can never, I'm not one personally, but speaking broadly in broad terms, no accredited representative will ever guarantee any sort of return, because it is based on factual evidence of an injury or illness that occurred in service. It's continuing, and it's sad because, like, I know at least one person, a good friend of mine, who fell victim to it. And I had to immediately say, like, hey, please stop. Wherever you are in this process, please stop right now. It is not in your interest.
Well, you mentioned a good point. Whenever accredited rep, agent, attorney is never going to guarantee, right?
No.
The only body that can guarantee something is the VA, right? You present the record as best as you can, and you might get a bad VA rater, or they might interpret the code wrong, right? CFR, they might incorporate the manual procedure wrong, in which case, okay, now you argue on appeal, right? But you can never guarantee. And guess what? I think everybody on here can agree, in all our experiences, there's only one way you can guarantee an outcome, and that's cheating. Right?
Yeah. And look, Jason, Brittany brings up an excellent point about not guaranteeing. So full disclosure for our listeners, Jason, John, and I are all still accredited with Department of Veterans Affairs. We all still carry an accreditation given the nature of the work that we have to do. And that comes with responsibilities. One of those responsibilities is that if we were to do things like that, if we were to present a fraudulent claim, if we were to entice veterans to commit fraud, there are penalties.
Yeah.
There are penalties. We can face fines. We can face jail time. And, you know, the first solution the VFW pursued on this was the Guard VA Benefits Act, which is still an active piece of legislation. It actually picked up 2 co-sponsors while we were in town for the Washington Conference.
That's great.
And it's going to be part of a hearing this week at the House Veterans Affairs Committee. I'm eager to hear how that testimony goes. It's just VA witnesses. We'll see if some things get on the record that I'm hoping get on the record. But nevertheless, the Guard VA Benefits Act is a very simple bill. it adds 64 words to federal code that basically means that the same penalties that John, Jason, and I face for fraudulent actions, erroneous fees, or illicit fees, that those apply to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems absurd that these companies are going around shopping to state houses that, no, those only apply to accredited people if they do unethical things. We can do unethical things all day long.
Yeah.
And
there's that fraud aspect is what underlies a one particular case out of North Carolina that in which there was class certification approved by the court against Veterans Guardian. And I mention that because folks may see notices going out on that case. That is a real case. It is real notices are required to go out from the court, and they describe exactly what's happening in there and how much money through the course of the class period that company has made, which is over $250 million. From that one company.
$250 million?
$250 million. That's right. And one company and just one class certification. So we're talking real dollars here. You add a few of those and you got some real money. But it's and it's all really about the fraud that exists in that. And I know they're trying to that company is trying to paint it as, well, this is just a procedural aspect that's required. It's like, well, yes, but the language that was required by the court is very pointed, I think, and really underlies what is going on here. So it's just important. Anybody that wants to, or could be affected, just take heed of that notice.
Yeah. I think it's also important to notice, as you're talking about, fraud and a lot of this with these claim sharks is coaching, right, that they've been doing, especially when answering a DBQ. So the VA, this was news, and then of them going to be using AI to scan all kinds of DBQs to see if there's fraud. And then they said, well, we're not. Well, it's very confusing. What's the latest? What's the news, Ryan?
Yeah, so our next segment on the whiteboard was VA collab ? So we talked about the interim final rule on medication a couple episodes ago, and VA hadn't reached out, and one of the things we keep telling VA is, hey, when there's going to be a substantial change or something that veterans need to know, reach out to us. Help us explain it to veterans as well. Help us explain it, especially to the veterans that we represent in the claims process. And for the VFW, that's hundreds of thousands of veterans alone. And so our peer organizations, DAV and Legion, have very large cohorts of veterans that we represent as well. Yeah. So help us get the ground truth to veterans before something is misinterpreted.
Right.
And
before anything else is misinterpreted, DBQ, explain that to me.
Yes, okay. Acronym. So DBQ, Disability Benefits Questionnaire. It's basically a form you would take to your doctor that when the doctor is evaluating the medical condition that you are seeking VA benefits for, it puts the questions in a way that helps VA rate the claim. So your doctor, many times your treating physician, their goal is to help make you better and help improve a condition. And they may use different language than VA does, depending on where they were trained and things like that. There are different names for different health conditions, or they may speak to you in a more colloquial tone than they would write in like the Merck manual or Gray's Anatomy. Yeah. And so...
Wait, explain colloquial. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, God. Here we go.
I'm just kidding. Sorry.
So they're going to put it in plain English to you.
Okay, got it.
And many times in your health record, it'll be in plain English, but VA is asking in technical medical terms, right. Or sometimes their medical terms are different than the newest medical terms. And so basically the form puts it in a language that VA can rate the claim. And what they're designed to do is that, Rob, if you're not going to Department of Veterans Affairs, you can take this to the doctor that you do go to treat whatever condition it is, and they can fill it out and put it in a language that VA understands to rate your claim. We think it's a good tool.
Yeah.
But like any good tool, it can be prone to abuse. And so what we've seen with many of the claim shark companies is that they tend to want to abuse this process and have some kind of arrangements that, we're really not sure of, but have some kinds of arrangements with their own doctors to help get you the evidence you need. I mean, just open up a social media platform and look for VA claims help. You'll find the videos and you'll see what we're talking about.
Well,
but,
I mean, I want to be careful with that because you don't want your algorithm to be all these companies, right?
Well, I don't know. If you're listening to us, you might want to see what the sludge looks like out there.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, so we've been talking to VA about this probably ever since an Inspector General report came out in 2020 that talked about the propensity of fraud for veterans seeking or doctors basically filling out these disability benefits questionnaires for a fee to basically align with whatever someone wants. Fraud.
Yeah, that's what
it was. It was the impetus for not just a couple of Inspector General reports, but then IG fraud alerts. And when I testified in 2022, I brought this up at the House Veterans Affairs Committee and talked about that, look, veterans are going to get caught up in this. We talked about already with the Puerto Rico lawsuit, but this is what VA is talking about. They announced that they're likely going to screen some records to try to identify trends, to try to identify clinicians who commonly are submitting DBQs or indicators that the doctor that wrote the opinion wasn't actually treating the veteran. The problem with this is it kind of set off a firestorm on social media within the veteran community, thinking that VA is now accusing us of being fraudsters. It's reiterating what the Washington Post said. Really, you may have noticed the VFW, we didn't put out an official statement on this. We didn't put anything on social media. I think we responded to a couple of media inquiries to try to set the record straight.
Right.
What we're asking for is really VA, get together with your accredited rep partners, explain to us what's happening so we can carry that water forward to the veteran community. To be blunt, and this is going to be not popular on social media.
Okay.
If this is clipped, is...
Of course it will be.
VA has to take a look at this. Because if VA doesn't take a look at this, we're never going to identify who those bad actors are. And I'm talking about the doctors who will write any medical opinion, because this undermines the non-adversarial nature of veterans' benefits. This is what leads to the Washington Post's reporting. This is what leads to Americans second-guessing the benefit programs that we provide to veterans. We have to get to the bottom of this. Now, make no mistake, veterans who took advantage of this are victims. We said that in 2022. They are victims of this scheme. Brittany, you captured a lot of that in your comments about veterans struggling to make ends meet, need health care. The economy is hard right now. And, when they turn to the internet to find those solutions, they're inundated with things enticing them to say, are you getting everything you deserve? Are you at 100%?
I couldn't even go to the local Amish market when I lived in Maryland. We couldn't go to the local Amish market to get groceries without there being a Claim Shark advertisement on the wall.
Oh, God.
Really?
Their advertisements are far and wide.
I wouldn't think.
Gross.
As pacifists are, the Amish are, I wouldn't think that there would be anything that's appealing to veterans there at an Amish market.
So Annapolis and Maryland has a giant military and veteran community, and the looking to take care of people.
Yeah.
But Brittany, you're right, and I think that's what's so tragic about this is veterans are going to get caught up in this. We tell veterans again, go to your VA exams. VA has what's a statutory duty to assist, which means the law says they have to help you find your health records, and they have to order any exams to evaluate conditions if your health records don't say how bad they are. It's as simple as that. And so if someone's saying, no, don't go to your VA exams, go to our doctor, that should raise all kind of red flags.
Lots of that.
Yeah.
What could be some of the penalties that these veterans, if they get duped into it, or maybe kind of knowingly pulled into a scheme like this, what could happen to them? Lawyers.
I've settled.
So it's,
Lawyers.
one of the same ones that Ryan articulated that would apply to the accredited representatives would be passed on to the veteran. Essentially, if there's fraud, I think, the immediate sanction would be a reduction in their benefits to one that's commensurate with their actual disability. But, there's obviously clawback provisions for any amount that has been provided. And if you are found to have fraudulently submitted a federal forms for a federal benefit, well, that is a crime.
Yeah. And it's punishable by significant fines and up to jail time. Up to jail time.
It could be felonious.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we spoke to in 2022 when we first raised this issue is that best case scenario is reorder an exam and let the chips fall where they may. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some veterans would have their claims confirmed and continued.
Yeah.
In that case, they just got taken for a lot of money that they didn't need to spend.
Yeah.
Which is tragic. Right. The other scenario is a reduction in benefits to what VA's evaluators said, and hopefully no debt collection.
Yeah.
And I think our advice to VA would be to go that route. First of all, do the best that you can to confirm and continue ratings. And if you find that VA rated on evidence that shouldn't have been given as much weight, just reduce and move forward would be the best case scenario. Because I think especially when you're dealing with these companies, their malice toward the veterans in enticing them to take advantage of this. I don't think veterans are out there actively seeking something that they feel they don't deserve.
Right.
But these companies are creating a scenario where it almost becomes irresistible.
Well, gosh, you think about this. If somebody is through one of these companies and it ends up being fraudulent, they didn't know it or what have you, and they were at 100%. And now, how does that? There's so many other things than just the benefits you get in compensation.
Healthcare, property tax
benefits.
Yeah.
Educational benefits at the state level. There's
think
so
about
many
state
other
level.
things. Right. There's so many things that can impact you. It's just best to do the right thing from the get-go, and just go to an accredited representative, and the VFW definitely has them.
Yeah.
Organizations that do as well, but don't pay into that. It's just, why take that risk?
And look, we see it online too, where people are like, look, I had a bad experience with the VSO. I had a bad experience with the VFW. But that happens. I had a bad experience, I had a bad experience with a landscaper that didn't show up at my house the other day. And so, look, these things happen.
Right.
You can find another landscaper.
Right.
And that's why there are thousands of accredited representatives among the major veterans organizations, VFW, DAV, Legion, and then your states, your counties. Every state's recognized. You have individual agents. You have individual attorneys who practice veteran benefit law. There are thousands of people who can help you under the current legal and ethical system.
Yep.
That there should never be a need to do this. I thought it was funny too, and I know I'm going into extra innings with this one. See, it's baseball season.
Yeah.
But the other day I was perusing the website on the class notification and watching a video on Veteran Guardian's website, watching the video about their class notification, and the chat bot pops up in the right hand corner. Are you getting all the benefits you deserve?
Jeez.
Come on.
Well,
chatbot. There's no quitting that chatbot.
Yeah, those chatbots out there. Well, hey, look, we're getting real close into time. I think we need to wrap this thing up. But before we do, you did say overseas travel. That is coming up. With that, I'm going to be taking our senior vice commander-in-chief, Corey Geisler. I'm going to be taking him over to Southeast Asia. We're going to do our deep dive fact-finding mission into the Defense POW MIA accounting agency that we do with all of our chair officers as they come through. And, that's some good work that's done there to be able to, uphold that promise to never leave someone behind. And there are Gold Star families out there waiting for closure in their life. And many of those service members from World War II and Vietnam, Korean War that went down in Asia, Southeast Asia, the Far East, all of that, they have yet to be found. So DPAA has found quite a few of them since they started this. And yet there's still a lot more that need to be found. So we're heading over there. I'm going to be leaving here pretty soon, actually next week. I'm going to be leaving. And
short timing. And Brittany, the plan is that Corey and I will shoot something while we're down range, so to speak. Road trip.
So we'll be doing something similar to this. May just be a sit down with Corey and I that we edit in or what have you. We'll see. It's tough with regards to Wi-Fi in other countries and government, and our VFW computer laptops, and what we have to change passwords or whatever. But we'll see what happens when we get there. Yeah, I know. So that is pretty much it. Was there anything else on overseas travel you wanted to talk about?
No. So really excited that we get to do this and visit with DPAA every year. And Jason, I know that this has been a priority of Corey's for a number of years back in Wisconsin, and really eager for him to get his hands dirty, literally, alongside our DPAA counterparts. But in addition to that, then Commander-in-Chief Carol Whitmore and Joy Craig from our legislative team are visiting service members.
That's right.
In Korea, and looking to add in potentially Japan as well.
Yeah, that's great.
In April.
Since you mentioned that, Ryan, with the speed of prior to Corey's, he was my senior vice when I was state commander. And then when he was commander, our commander special project. I want to put this out there to all our members who might be listening. As you hopefully, step up into leadership and move through the chairs. Wisconsin UW has a POW MIA recovery program. We have about approximately 1,500 still haven't come home since World War II. And their funding, unfortunately, doesn't get a whole lot from the state. And so the veterans organization's here, but Corey raised almost $50,000 as his special project command year to help that program. So everyone can get involved with this, right? And so,
that's absolutely right. In fact, they were telling me on the phone, some of the folks over in DPAA, that there was a what they call a JFA, Joint Field Activity, dig site, if you will, of a MIA search and recovery mission that was led. It was under their under their purview, but it was led by a NGO, non-governmental organization that was doing a recovery effort out there. A lot of times you get folks from academia that do it. Non-profits have put together teams that go over there. So really excellent work that's done. And it's great to hear that too. That, $50,000 Corey raised, that's awesome. So look forward to it.
We're lobbying as a department to try and get the state to give them more funding. So we're still fighting that to get that done. But we're pretty proud of what that program's doing just from people in Wisconsin, right? Now multiply that times 50 in our territory so we can really make an impact.
Yeah. We'll have, when I come back and we jump on the podcast, Brittany, remind me, please. We'll talk about how people can get involved in these efforts. There's definitely, I think, opportunities there for folks to pitch in and help bring back those that are missing in action from conflicts past. So I think that's it. We went long in this one, but time
lot to talk about.
Lot to talk about. Time for the good of the order. We're going to go around the horn here. Did you all have something in mind? Because I do. Okay. All right. Good. We'll start with Jason Johns. Jason, what is your good of the order?
All right. So my good of the order number one is everyone, who's listening to this, not just veterans, not just members. Everyone can speak up to their representatives on behalf of veterans issues, right? You don't have to be a veteran to make your voice heard on veterans issues. So I want everybody to sign up for the Action Corps.
Nice.
At www.votervoice.net/VFW/register. So votervoice.net/VFW/register. And then also, when we do my job as ledge chair, if you don't know who your members are, I want you to go find your congressional representatives, and I want you to call them. And I want you to look at our VFW.org and see our priorities. But right now, I need you to call them and talk about Major Richard Starr and our other priorities going on, and just say, look, I feel you should be supporting this issue.
Nice.
If you don't know who your members are, congress.gov/members/find-your-member. And then finally, for our Rudisill veterans who might still have some questions on that, as John and I mentioned, the VA is back and forth, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, they're saying we're going to look at, right, if you had to relinquish your MGIB before, trying to make that right. Mm-hmm. They do have a great page with the most updated information. I want to share that. That's www.benefits.va.gov/GI Bill/Rudisill, RUDISILL. Of course, the government one was the longest, but benefits.va.gov/GI Bill/Rudisill.
All right.
That's what I got. Make your voice heard.
Thanks, Jason Johns. Over to John Muckelbauer. What's your good of the order?
Well, we talked a lot about a lot of different topics, and I appreciate all of them. Just one, I think, closing thought on claim sharks. Just know that accredited representatives, service officers, they fight to get a veteran every benefit the law allows, whereas a claim shark fights to get paid. Right? One is driven by their duty, the other is driven by fees. It's not really, the service officer asks, what has this veteran earned? And the claim shark is, what can I take off the top? So I just ask any listener out there that's debating, just understand that distinction and make the right choice.
That's
well
right.
Said. Well said.
Those claim sharks are looking for ways to get more ascots, if you will.
More Sharkington.
Kip Sharkington.
He's back.
He's back.
Back again.
Yes. The only shark that I know that's got an underbite. Anyway, so over to Brittany with her good of the order.
Ooh, okay. I think I have more than one, but I'll keep it quick. So it's St. Patrick's Day, which is pretty awesome. I'm wearing a hat that I never wear. In fact, it's not mine. It does say Ireland, and I am not Irish. So just put that out there. I'm not Irish, but I will be eating corned beef and cabbage tonight, and I'm really psyched about that. It's also my son's first birthday, which
happy birthday.
Yeah. So it's a great day to have a birthday, St. Patrick's Day. So you have an excuse to, party every year within reason, as a child does, of course. Sure. But it's been one heck of a year. And so thank you to the VFW family for being with Pat and I throughout this time. It's been a wild ride, and we're psyched to continue and have you be part of it. So thank you. Right. And I think that's it. I just want to thank Jason and John a whole lot for being on with us today. I know that you're extremely busy and doing excellent work for VFW. And thank you for providing the insights that we can't necessarily provide as non-attorneys. Mm-hmm. We could speak about a lot of things, but your expertise is invaluable. So thank you both for being with us today. That's all I have.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. And what are you going to do when Finnegan grows up and he doesn't like green? That's going to stink for his birthday and cake.
If he doesn't like green,
gonna happen,
especially if he doesn't like corned beef, I will still accept him for who he is.
Hi.
I will still accept him for who he is and support him and however he wants to celebrate his birthday.
Very kind of you. All right. Well,
But I will be
Irish
disappointed.
blessings to you and to him. Over to you there, Mr. Ryan Gallucci. A good Irish name.
All right. Yeah. So a couple things for the good of the order, and I'll try to be quick as well. So look, we've talked a little bit about Operation Epic Fury on here. And there's one thing, I know that this is probably bringing up a lot of emotions for veterans, especially those who may have served in Iraq and Afghanistan within the veteran community. And so really, encourage anybody listening, check on your buddies, make sure that they're doing okay. And if you're having challenges, that there are organizations that can help. There is the VA crisis line, of course, but then, in my personal journey, vet centers helped me a lot.
Yep.
Over time. So, it's an uncertain time.
Yeah.
And we ask our servicemen and women to do very dangerous things, and especially those of us who deployed overseas. When you see another armed conflict start up, it starts to reopen some of those intrusive thoughts and memories. So really encourage anybody listening, first of all, to take care of yourselves, but then also look out for your buddies.
Yeah.
And, that's what the VFW was founded on in many ways. We were doing peer support before we knew what to call it.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I'm grateful for the peers that I've found in the VFW over time. I'll break that fourth wall. Jason, you and I have had some candid conversations. We were in Iraq at the same time, back in OIF 1. And we've had some of those talks, and that's what we do as veterans. We look out for one another, especially when those kind of things creep in.
Yeah.
On a positive note, it's baseball season. It's getting close to baseball season. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that, and hope springs eternal. and last but not least, those of you who've been watching have probably noticed my face going through a transformation. I am scheduled for surgery to help address this here at the end of the month.
Hey, look at that.
So fingers crossed.
You said at the
Hope it
end
goes well.
At the end of March.
at the end of March.
At the end of this month. So
Well, best of I really hope it goes well for you, and you feel better. Your eye feels better at the most part. Your face, all that sort of thing. So, that's good.
I guarantee you better looks afterwards, or not?
Look, some things just can't be fixed.
Well, you guys all had like really great good of the orders, and in fact, you took some of my ideas. I will say to that point, look, it's not lost on me that the 6 airmen that we lost when that tanker went down on the anniversary of my father's plane crash in March 12th. And so just keep that in mind. There's Gold Star families out there that are going through this time of year in which their dads or their mom are not going to be with them, that they're going to start baseball season without their parent there. They're going to start, spring recitals and concerts with an empty seat. And so keep in mind our Gold Star families as we go through. And, and also on a positive note, celebrate family when you can. One of my traditions for St. Patrick's Day is, of course, just like Brittany, is eating corned beef and cabbage and having a good Irish meal. But we also, and my kids think I'm the corniest for this, but I watch Far and Away. It's quite possibly the worst. It's almost as bad as like Darby O'Gill and the Little People. You know what I mean?
I just listen to Dropkick Murphys all day.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's another thing. But anyway, I appreciate spending time, every moment you can take, and just, even if it's St. Patrick's Day, for some of us, it's a big deal. It's a big family event. And for others, just like Brittany, on St. Patrick's Day, everybody's Irish. So you're welcome to the fold there, lass.
Thank you. I'm surrounded by everyone's Irish around me, so I better, I have to play the part.
Yep.
But
All right. Well, hey, thank you all for being on the podcast and joining us today. And for all of you out there, thank you for listening and watching the VFW podcast. Make sure that you subscribe, like, follow, and put those notifications in so when the latest podcast drops, you'll get it right away. Until then, I'm Rob Couture reminding you, when it comes to the VFW, we are still serving. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Still Serving, the VFW podcast. To get the latest news and information from the veterans of foreign wars, make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to us on social media at VFW HQ, on Facebook at VFW Fans, or visit our website at vfw.org.